Welcome to the Friday press conference ahead of the 2019 German Grand Prix. From left to right this afternoon, we're joined by Mario Isola, Günther Steiner, Toto Wolff, Franz Tost and Ottmar Safnauer. Toto, if I could start with you, please. You're celebrating Mercedes' 200th race this weekend, 125 years in motorsport. What do those stats mean to you, the boss? And do you have a favourite moment that you can tell us about?
The stats are not so interesting for me because it's just numbers and it's the past. But what it reminds you when you see all the photography and the films that have been done of the old days is that the responsibility we carry for the brand. Mercedes has started in motorsports 125 years ago. Lots of history has been created, and that is a responsibility which we are carrying and representing that fantastic almighty brand.
You say there's a responsibility that brings pressure. What would it mean to win this race, given that you also have the title sponsorship of it?
Well, from a karma perspective, everything speaks against it. We are celebrating 125 years of motorsport. We're having a dedicated livery. We're wearing a different team kit tomorrow, and lots of activities around the track. All board members, or most of the board members, present. So, when you look at it from the point of karma, this is one to lose for us. But the reality is different. It's another race. We want to do particularly well here in Hockenheim because of our home crowd. But on the other side, it's 25 points that are as many points as on any other given circuit, and we just need to add another good race performance in order to make a step towards a championship.
And talking of good race performance, can I ask you about Valtteri Bottas now? Because he has 4 poles this year, so he seems to have made progress in qualifying, yet it doesn't always translate to Sunday afternoons as well. Why do you think that is?
In my point of view, the performances in qualifying are really strong. Having an almost balanced record against Lewis Hamilton is something to be proud of and shows that he has made a step up from last year. Racing, again, is a different exercise. I think this year's theme is all about keeping the car and the tires in a sweet spot. That means you need to drive the car maybe in a different way. And he's getting there. He's getting better and better. We have seen a race in Silverstone where, if safety car would have come out in a different way, he would have challenged for the race win. But the ifs don't count. You need to bring it to the end. But I'm sure we will see Valtteri continue to improve and bring in good race performances.
And continue with Mercedes in 2020?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that question. We want to end up the season before the shutdown in a good place and put in 2 solid performances in Hockenheim and Budapest, and then spend some time thinking about driver lineup for 2020 and beyond.
Okay, thank you, Toto. Good luck this weekend. Ottmar, if I could come to you now, please. An important race for Racing Point this weekend, with lots of upgrades coming to the car. After FP1, what are your first impressions of the performance?
Well, first impressions were positive. We didn't run the quickest tire, and we looked a bit more competitive than usual in FP1, but unfortunately this press conference conflicts with our debrief, so I don't know as much as I normally would. We've got to get the drivers' feedback and then look at the data. We'll know more tomorrow morning after we run FP2 as well.
But first impressions? First
impressions were very positive. Yeah.
Okay. It's been almost a year since the takeover by Lawrence Stroll. Can you take a moment's reflection for us and just tell us the impact that has had on the team and the plan going forward with factory, drivers, things like that?
The impact's been quite positive. Things like bringing a big upgrade here in the past wouldn't have been possible. So from a financial perspective, we are on a much better footing. And like you say, our plans going forward are very good. They're strategic, but take some time to implement. Last year at this time, for example, we're around 405 people. We're at around 430 now. So not a huge change in personnel, just because it does take time. So there will be a lag between the better financial footing that we're on, the plans that we have going forward, and actually the implementation. But the immediate impact, like you see today, we have a big upgrade here, and that's only a good thing.
Okay, thank you, Otmar. Good luck this weekend. Franz, if I can come on to you, please. It's a very tight midfield battle this year, with rivals like Racing Point bringing performance to their car here in Hockenheim. Can you tell us how you see the pecking order in the midfield and what plans for upgrades you've got for your car?
Toro Rosso has also some upgrades here on the aerodynamical side, and looks not so bad, but of course we have to analyze all the data and everything, set up the car in the proper way with these new aero upgrades, and then we will see tomorrow in qualifying where we end up. I think that it's a step forward, but nearly every team comes up with such upgrades, and at the end, in the midfield, which is very close together, it's very decisive that you continuously improve the performance of the car, come with upgrades, and then we will see at the end of the season who had a higher development speed and the most successful development.
Okay. Can I ask you quickly about drivers as well? You took a bit of a gamble with both of them prior to this season, and both are doing a good job. Just your analysis of their first half of the season and plans for 2020.
We have two really good drivers. Daniel Kiert, we knew from the past that he is fast. He is also matured now, and he is showing a very, very good performance. And Alex Albon, for me, is the positive surprise of the young drivers, and together with Norris. And I think that he will have a very strong second half of the season, because then he knows the car quite well. He knows what's going on in Formula One. And if we provide him with a proper package, then I think that he will come up with real good results. And I personally hope that we can continue with these two drivers, but this is the end of decision from Red Bull, and I think the decision will not be made before end of September, beginning of October.
Okay, thank you, Franz. Good luck this weekend. Gunter, if I could come on to you, please. Let's start by looking back, if we can, at Silverstone. Wonder if you could talk to us about the post-race debrief, perhaps, or what's the fallout of what happened at the start between your two drivers?
I mean, everybody saw it. They crashed into each other, I guess, and both had a puncture. I mean, which wasn't correct. I want to move on from that. I talked with both of them yesterday. Our focus now is, I mean, we could sit there and discuss it over and over. At some stage, you need to live with it. It's water under the bridge. We need to get out of this one. Saying I told the guys, I expressed my opinion after the race. I want that they focus on here, because we didn't get the result we wanted in Silverstone. We again went away with no points. We need to focus to understand better how to get this car to work again, because the car at some point works and then it doesn't work anymore. We need to get a good understanding, so after a summer break we can be stable. That is my aim, to have a clear way to go forward, where the car needs to be, that for the different specs of the car here, so we get a lot of data and hopefully can come to a conclusion before after the summer break and move on. So there was not a lot more said yesterday about Silverstone, because it's old news.
Well, you say you've got the cars in different specs here. Is Grosjean still in the Melbourne spec car? It seems quite a drastic decision to go back to the start of the season.
Sometimes only drastic decisions work, in my opinion. At some stage, if you continue to discuss back and forward the same thing over and over again, that means that you don't know what you're doing, in my opinion. So you need to prove it. It's drastic and it's very unusual, but sometimes you have to look outside of the box what to do to get an understanding. Yeah, he's again in the Melbourne spec car, because in Silverstone we didn't get enough data because of the reason you said before. So our aim is now just to understand what do we have to do the second half of the season, nothing else. That is our task here and in Hungary.
Okay, good luck with that. Thank you, Gunter. Mario, thanks for waiting. Coming to you now. 2020 tyre testing is ongoing. The latest test taking place after the British Grand Prix. How's it going? What are you learning?
It is going well. We are testing different construction, different compounds. We want to change the product for next year in the direction that was highlighted by the teams, by my friend Gunther here. with a wider working range, and less he's a consultant, and less overheating. That is, as I said many times, is something that drivers don't like. So we continue our work. It's important that we clarify for the future what is required to the 18 inches tire for 2021, because we will start soon to test also the 2021 tires. And we need to agree the targets for that in order to be all in the same direction, because we have only one product.
Well, F2 is testing the 18-inch tyre as well. How transferable is the data you're getting from the F2 car to the F1?
We will collect important data from the test, but the level of energy, the level of stress, the forces that are on the tires on Formula 1 cars are not comparable to F2. But there are some good indication. We did 2 sessions. We are ready for the third one, and we just finished one. And we have good indication from the new sides. But again, also the size will be different, because Formula 2 will continue with the 245 front and 325 rear. That is the old Formula 1 size. So there are many differences, but I believe that having one full year of racing with Formula 2 cars next year will be quite important to understand how to develop also some, for some elements, the Formula 1 tires.
Thank you, Mario. Let's open this to the floor now, and as ever, please remember to give your name and publication. First question, please.
Dan Knutson, Auto Action and Speed Sport. Otmar, following on from the earlier question, as the team expands and you're building a new factory, you obviously will face some challenges, I don't know, paying lots of money for land or zoning and planning permission. Where are you with the factory, and when will it be online?
We should have all the permissions in place towards the latter half of this year, before Christmas. And we're in the design phase now of the factory, trying to right-size it for the future. There's also a little bit that we have to wait to understand what the 2021 regulations are going to be, which will have an impact on what we build. And probably before mid-year next year, we will be well on the way with building the factory.
Thank you. Next one.
Christian Nimmervoll from motorsporttotal.com. Toto, you said in Austria that ideally you would hope to have clarity about Valtteri's future sooner than last year. Last year, I believe the contract was announced on July 20th, and now we have the 26th. So what has changed, and what is the reason for that delay?
You're following those dates better than I do. I guess it's pretty unusual to announce drivers in July anyway. If you want to take all the time you properly need to assess, you can even drag it into the winter, like we've seen in some other teams, and which was the standard, which was the standard in the past. For us, it's not only about making the right decision for next year, but it's looking ahead. And this is why we agreed that we will take the decision in August going forward. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we will announce it in August.
Thank you, Toto. Next one.
Julien Bieliot, Auto Edo. Question to Toto. Toto, at the start of this century, we had the German driver winning everything, and the interest for F1 in Germany was sky high. Now we have a German team winning everything, and maybe the numbers are not as they used to be. How do you explain this difference? Is it just a case of fans being more interested in drivers than teams, or do you think we've changed eras and people are no longer accepting periods of sustained domination like yours?
In my opinion, there's 2 reasons. First of all, the only team that is really having a full nation behind them is Ferrari, and this is historic, and it's something we would be aiming for in a best case. But it's also a situation that has to grow over many years, if not decades. You have to stay in the sport for a long time, grow your fan base, and then it becomes less of a factor who drives the car as long as it is a Mercedes or a Ferrari. So I would very much hope that we are building the foundations today that in 20 years from now we can achieve such a status. But of course you have to be realistic, and it's most about people cheer for drivers, at least in Formula One. And we've had very successful drivers, German drivers in Formula One that have dominated their eras. Michael in the early 2000s, and then Sebastian from 2010 to 2014. And I think that comes in waves. You can see there was great interest for Formula One and Formula One drivers in Germany in these 10 or more years, in a similar way that it was in tennis around Boris Becker and Steffi Graf, and the interest has faded away. And if you look at Spain, which is another market that gives you some kind of indication, it was not existent before Fernando, was one of the best markets with the most vivid fans when Fernando was able to compete for race wins and championships. And once that was over, it is one of our weakest markets, and there is not a lot of following. So I think combining those two factors, obviously continue to be in Formula One, build your fan base as a team, and have a German driver that is a great personality, that is fighting for the championship. These are the ingredients to revive the German interest.
Thank you. Next one.
Dieter Renken, Racing Lines and RaceFans.net. Günther and Ottmar, after the last year during the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, I believe after that you brought some form of action against Liberty regarding Column 1 monies that apparently Racing Point are qualifying for, and you felt that you should. Could you give us the latest on the situation on this? Is it still ongoing? Has there been a resolution? Where do we stand? And then Ottmar, how does this all affect your team's plans going forward, given that there's potentially $60 million or something involved?
Günther, if we can start with you, please.
There is nothing new to report. I think you asked the same question a few months ago, Dieter, and I didn't report anything there. It's an ongoing process, and I have to leave it at that.
Ottmar, anything to add?
No, I don't think the I don't think the case is against us. So nothing to add.
Okay. Next one, please.
Phil Duncan, PA. Toto, at the start of 2017, the battle between Sebastian and Lewis was billed as, the most successful drivers of their generation going head-to-head. But during the last 2 years, we've seen that Lewis has basically been the convincing winner. And also during that time, Sebastian's made a few uncharacteristic mistakes. Do you think that Lewis's talent is the main reason as to why Sebastian's made those mistakes, and that Lewis has managed to get under Sebastian's skin and perhaps dented his confidence?
I think you need to be careful with trying to pinpoint it to one single factor. It undoubtedly, Lewis has a great ability and talent, but one of the strengths that I have been witness of in those last years is how he continues to develop as a racing driver, and how he continues to develop as a human being. He's very self-reflective. I've said it a few times, but he's one of the only driver that I have heard coming in after a session and saying, you don't need to look at my data because my driving was not good enough. And that from a 5-time world champion. And I think this self-reflection and the ability to be brutally honest with yourself has certainly made him one of the greats. I know Sebastian, but I have too little insight in how the team works and how Sebastian looks at things. What I can say, the record speaks for him. He has won 4 championships, and that doesn't come from anywhere. And I have no reason to believe that he's not going to recover from what looks to be like a moment of mistakes. But definitely, both of these drivers have shaped a generation of drivers, and it's exciting to see them fighting.
Thank you. Next one, please.
David Joram, Der Tagesspiegel. One question to Franz and Toto. Tomorrow we will see a small show of Mick Schumacher. What do you think about him, and what do you think about his performances in this season?
Franz, can we start with you?
I think that Mick is showing a real good performance. Last year he won the Formula 3 European Championship. This year he is the first year in Formula 2. He showed some very good races. In some other races he was involved in incidents, but it's a learning year. I expect that he will do another Formula 2 year, and tomorrow he is in the car which his father drove here. I think that's a very exciting moment for all the fans and also for Mick, and I'm convinced that he will make his way into Formula 1.
Toto?
Well, Franz knows everything about young drivers, and there's not a lot to add. Maybe from the personal side, he's a great young man with a fantastic character and personality, and a big name that sometimes can have a negative impact in Formula 1 because you're being put under pressure, and he copes extremely well with that pressure. Now we need to give him time to properly develop as a young man and as a racing driver, and I have no doubt that we will see him in Formula 1.
Thank you. Next one, please.
Stefan Ehlen, motorsporttotal.com. Question to all. It seems unlikely that the German GP is returning next year. How much does Formula 1 need a race in Germany, and which track would you prefer, Nürburgring or Hockenheim, or even do the Nordschleife?
Mario, can we start with you?
Nordschleife is a bit aggressive choice, I believe. For us, Germany is a very important market. Very important car manufacturers are based here, so hopefully they will find a solution for Germany. Hockenheim or Nürburgring, I don't have a strong preference on the two circuits, so one or the other is okay, but not the Nordschleife.
Thank you. Günther?
I think there should be a race in Germany. I mean, it's a big car manufacturing country, and if you don't come here, it's quite disappointing. But it needs to work financially, like everything in the world. There needs to be some financials, but I think we can put a pledge into Toto to help out here, that we get a race in Germany. We blame it on him if there is no German race here, It's a good point to blame it. No, without kidding, I mean, hopefully we can get I think it's not off the calendar yet, but it looks like it is not, it's not going to happen, but sure, it would be great to have a race here. Nürburgring or here, I don't really, I think there should be a race in Germany.
Thank you. And Toto?
Unusually well said from Günther. Yeah, there should be a race in Germany. Germany is a historic venue. Both of these tracks have historic context. If we could race on the Nordschleife, that would be great. The drivers would love it, but I don't think it's technically feasible anymore. The track doesn't allow these kind of speeds. But there is a financial reality behind everything in Formula 1. The promoters have the duty, or the FOM has the duty to bring in the best deals and balance with the historic relevance. And we are dependent on the income as well, and that financial reality is just a fact. And they need to make the right choices. If we could vote for a race in Germany, we would, but we respect the authority of Formula 1 to choose the right tracks.
Hockenheim, Nürburgring?
I like both, to be honest. Both are very traditional and great racing tracks for drivers.
Thank you. Franz, your thoughts?
There's not so much to add. It would be a shame if he do not come back to Germany. Germany should have a Grand Prix, being so much involved in the automotive industry. But as it looks like the ingredients are not coming together, neither at the Nürburgring nor here at the Hockenheim ring, and therefore the drastic end could be that we are not racing anymore with Formula 1 here in Germany.
Okay, and Ottmar, your thoughts?
With a name like Ottmar Safnauer, I feel a certain duty to support the German Grand Prix. So it would be a shame if we don't come back here. We enjoy coming. It's great racing, and massive fan base too, with everything that happens at the Nürburgring and DTM and Formula 1. I think we should continue to come.
Okay.
And Nürburgring or Hockenheim, both are good.
Thank you. Next one, please.
Luke Smith, Crash.net. Toto, could we get an update on Esteban Ocon's plans for next year? Where does he fit into your considerations for Mercedes in 2020? Are you starting to sound out other F1 teams about a seat for the future? And would you consider releasing him as a last resort if you're unable to land him an F1 seat for next year?
We're very happy with the development of Esteban and equally George. They are our most senior junior drivers, and the aim is to make them ready for a seat in a Mercedes. And as we all know, it was an unfortunate situation last year that Esteban fell between the chairs. He could have chosen between two seats, and at the end, nothing came out. So from our perspective, everybody knows about his driving capabilities. For Mercedes, for ourselves, Valtteri is showing some very strong performances and merits the seat. But equally, Esteban has shown that in the past and is a great addition to the team. He contributes a lot behind closed doors. He drives the sim overnight on race weekends, comes in here on Saturday and gives us input, and he's a great kid overall. So putting a young Mercedes young driver in the car would be interesting as well. Having said that, there is interest for Esteban among other teams, and we need to carefully make a decision for ourselves and with the other interested parties, not only for our own benefit, but also for Esteban's benefit. And if it would mean that we are taking a decision in favor of Valtteri, it clearly also means that somebody else would continue to develop him, and would mean that we lose our hand for a year or two or more on Esteban, and these are the consequences of that decision.
Thank you, Toto. Any more questions?
Heikki Kulta, Turun Sanomat. Toto, if you could pick anyone you want from the current drivers, what would be your dream team?
Good question, Heikki. I think overall it's an exciting period, because we have strong quality within the Formula One grid, and you can say that certainly the most experienced ones, Lewis and Sebastian, merit their place in Formula One. Lewis is the one to beat. He's setting the benchmarks. Then you have an exciting driver like Max, who is coming up, who has shown great ability and who has won races, and no doubt about his talent. And then there is a group of drivers that have shown that they are capable of winning races if they are put in the right car, be it Daniel or Valtteri. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. But definitely very strong. And then the fourth group for me are the exciting young men that are coming up, and this is a big group that have definitely come into Formula One on merit. And it is Esteban and George, Lando. Lance has won the F3 European Championship. Albon is a great surprise and is doing well. So I think these will be the future superstars in Formula One, and seeing that panning out between the ones that have been here for a while and these new kids coming up is making Formula One very interesting. So to come back to your question, I have definitely a dream team that I have in my mind, but I can't tell you.
How about the other three team principals? Have you got a dream team you can tell us about, Günther?
No, after Toto spoke, I cannot repeat what he said in 5 minutes, not giving an answer. I'm quicker. I don't know. There's a lot. I have my dream team, but I don't know who. I don't want to tell you who it is, and I cannot get him anyway. So why would I even dream about it, So it's just Toto which can get him, because he has got the best car. So my dream team is a lot smaller than his one. So but I still cannot tell you.
Franz?
Happy with the drivers. No dream.
Omar?
It's nice to dream, but we're realistic, and we're happy with the two we have.
Okay. Any more questions?
So Klausmann for Racing Line in Hungary. Question for Ottmar. Are you happy with the coming budget cap? Do you need it? Or do you wish to have other support, regulation side to close the gap to the top teams?
I think the budget cap's needed, and yes, we're happy that it's coming. Is the budget cap low enough? We were hoping that it would be lower, but I do have sympathy and understanding for some of the teams that will have to make internal cuts, because that's not easy. So as a first step, we welcome it. We, as a team, will not be butting up to that budget cap, so we'll still be below it, but I think it's the right direction for Formula One.
Toto, can we get your thoughts on the budget cap?
I think the budget cap is important because it prevents the big three teams to continuously escalate the cost just to beat each other, and it puts a ceiling on that, and that is good. It certainly will help to narrow the gap between the smaller team and the big one, simply because we will not be able to escalate it anymore. Having said that, it's still above what the small teams spend. So for me personally, it's a breakthrough that we actually have accepted the concept of a cost cap for the years to come, and then one step at a time. The next step could be maybe even lowering the cap from where we are now, or finding different tools to stop the spending war that has happened over the last 20, 30 years in Formula One.
Thank you. Any more?
Christian Nimmervoll from motorsporttotal.com. I see how Nordschleife, as good as it would be, is a long shot probably to realize. But in terms of Liberty seeking unique event character racetracks, do you think it was a mistake that Formula One got rid of the old Hockenheim ring layout?
Who's that question to, sir? The team principals. Otmar, can we start with you? The old Hockenheim.
Well, the Nordschleife probably is a step too far. You're right, and it's hard to know whether this is better or that's better, because it's never a controlled experiment. Glad we're here. We like the venue here as is, and I think it's good for the fans.
Thank you, Franz.
Yeah, I think Nordschleife is not anymore for Formula One, for the current Formula One cars, safe enough, as we all know. And therefore, they changed the track over there, the new programming. And I think that this decision was absolutely right.
Here at Hockenheim.
Yeah.
Toto.
Well, we tend to be a little bit nostalgic about the old tracks. And as Franz and Otmar said, Nürburgring Nordschleife is not feasible anymore. The cars would go too fast. It would be too dangerous. I liked the old Hockenheim layout and the slipstream battles into the forest. But it is what it is. The track is great, infrastructure is great that we have today, and that's why it makes no sense to dream about the past.
Günther?
There's not a lot more to be said. I don't know why they got rid of the old Hockenheim. I don't remember that one, why it was, but this is a great venue. And the only thing, we shouldn't dream about the old one. We should try to deal with the present to get a race here, whatever it is. That's my opinion on Hockenheim. We should have a race here at the Nürburgring in Germany.